Hello, and welcome to Season 7 of the FODcast, the podcast focused on the future of digital commerce hosted by Simply Commerce. Season 7 promises to continue to bring you some of the industry's brightest minds across the globe as we unpick the sector and where it's heading. From war stories to strategy and technology deep dives to future trends, we cover it all as we continue our journey to have one of the most popular podcasts in commerce. Before we start, if you enjoy our content, please do hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on, like and share on socials. Hello, and welcome back to the podcast, the future of all things digital commerce. Today, we're honing down on Shopify and how it's helping brands unlock growth and efficiency at the same time. Joining me to unpack everything is Serge El Hachem, Director of Solution Engineering for Lazer Technologies. Thanks for joining me, Serge.
Thanks for having me, James. So,
That was a close one, that was.
yeah,
Uh, Look, today we're going to be exploring how to reduce the total cost of ownership without sacrificing performance, what a modern Shopify technology stack really looks like, and how to win over the most skeptical of technology teams. Before we do, Serge, over to you for a quick 60-second intro.
sure. So I'm Serge, or if you can say my name in French, it's Serge, but I won't hold you to it. Essentially,
We might be here for a while.
yeah, it's all good. But I lead enterprise Shopify implementations, essentially helping global brands move faster, simplify operations, and scale really without the complexity tax. So over the last 2 decades, I would say, I've worked with a long list of retailers, guiding them through replatforming, systems integrations, architecture design, um, just building things that balance performance and maintainability for them. Out of those 2 decades, I would say maybe the last 8 or so years right now have been essentially focused just on Shopify itself.
How many say 8 years? Sorry.
8 years, yeah. The last 8 years of like my 20 plus career in
Yeah,
e-com has
okay.
been just working on the Shopify platform.
Nice. So that is a lot of conversations then that have been focused around Shopify.
A lot, yes.
Nice.
A lot of battles.
Good way to put
Yeah.
it. And then just so we know, the conversation today, we're going to have a kind of global standpoint in terms of how you see things globally, or we're going to be
Mhm.
focusing this on kind of what you're seeing in the sort of the North American market.
Pretty much globally. So I do have experience with international retailers. I would say maybe the last year or so, I've been a little bit more focused on North American ones, but things haven't really changed that much.
Okay. All right. Well, let's jump in. So yeah, I guess where are you seeing the biggest cost inefficiencies in legacy or maybe composable setups today, Serge?
Uh, that's a good question. So what I often see with legacy or just composable architecture is that the total cost of ownership doesn't really come from licenses alone. It comes from what I call like the invisible overhead. So you're paying multiple vendors, you're managing separate contracts, you're building glue code just to make everything talk together. Every release needs some kind of regression testing across several systems, right? You want to test your checkout, your CMS, your PIM, OMS, personalization layer, analytics. All that means just more QA, more dev time, longer lead times. You essentially need larger teams as well just to maintain that stack. You're going to need DevOps, you're going to need backend engineers, QA, platform specialists, just to roll out minor updates, really. Um, and then you've got essentially the integration tax, which is these fragile connections that you're building between services that break when one vendor just pushes an update. Um, and a lot of these legacy platforms as well have essentially a lot of work just to maintain them. Like a lot of the effort that you're putting into the development is maintaining that platform, updating it yourself, really. So whenever the platform has a new update or a new framework that you have to migrate to, that's a lot of work that's essentially spent on that.
So in brands that make the move to composable architecture, often I've been told that one of the benefits of doing this is to reduce the
Mhm.
TCO, which seems to all to oh, sorry, seems to oppose what you were just saying.
Yeah, so essentially where that usually comes from is that the cost of license is probably going to be lower because you're, again, you're picking and choosing your composable stack. You're picking things that might be lower cost and might give you a little bit more benefit in terms of what you're looking for in terms of functionality. But the cost of maintaining that is usually like the invisible tax, the invisible overhead. And that's where, like, if you're looking at TCO from all of that, usually you end up losing in terms of like,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, okay. There's the bits you don't see then, basically.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's say obviously said brand then migrates to Shopify. So what are the cost areas that shrink the quickest?
Uh, Infrastructure and hosting is one of the big ones. So obviously Shopify is fully managed. It auto scales. There's no DevOps team for on like on the agency side or even on the retailer side. So you don't have to manage uptime. You don't have to manage scaling events like Black Friday, Cyber Monday. You don't necessarily need to pay AWS bills or CDN bills separately. All of that is included or baked in with Shopify. Um, Anything related to security and compliance, so anything patches related, PCI, fraud monitoring if you're not using an external vendor, all of that is handled by Shopify. So you don't need to worry about security releases or compliance audits, for example, just draining your velocity. Um, the other portion that's not necessarily measurable in that way, but is relevant is speed to market, right? So Shopify is opinionated where it actually matters. And so instead of you and your team spending 6 to 9 months building the basics like checkout, auth, your cart logic, promo rules, you're essentially building on a proven foundation and just you're focusing your engineering on business specific problems. And then even what I mentioned a little bit earlier, continuous upgrades. So Shopify updates the core platform for you. Instead of you replatforming every few years, you changing frameworks every few years, you're essentially evolving just by being on Shopify. So new APIs, new checkout features, new extensibility, they just come to you directly and you can just leverage them directly. So you don't have to essentially spend your budget on those development hours. So you're essentially shifting from um, paying for upkeep to paying for outcomes.
Got yeah, and I mean the obviously the Shopify model where you would then integrate the apps that are of use to your business
Hmm.
uh seems like it's working very well and I think for the majority it does. Something that I've heard quite a lot recently though is how actually by the time when you've actually incorporated a number of apps for your business, the TCO is far higher than you maybe were expecting, and actually the total reduction in TCO is far smaller than the brand was expecting. Is that something that you've also seen, and what would you say about that, Serge?
I do see it in some cases, and there's a lot of nuances to that. So I see it in cases where a retailer, for example, went from a custom PIM that they were hosting and managing themselves. We're not really paying it. And now that they're moving to Shopify, they're essentially taking that opportunity to um, select a third party, a vendor for a PIM. And now on paper, their cost of ownership has increased because now they're actually paying a monthly subscription fee, which can be quite high. But again, if you're taking into account the development time you're spending to maintain that PIM, or if you were just maintaining it and not improving it, not adding functionality to it, that's still a loss of potential revenue. That's a loss of functionality that you're not getting access to. So yes, in terms of like CapEx, you're spending more, um, but there is a bigger return, a bigger ROI essentially, once you're utilizing vendors like that on Shopify.
Okay. Ultimately, the development time as well is going to be down substantially, I imagine, and we're seeing that with smaller teams being required for migration projects, and then obviously maintenance moving forward as well. Gone are the days are teams of 10 back-end devs, right? It's very much a case of a smaller team, couple of front-end devs, designer, maybe full stack dev, and you're there.
Yeah, even less than that.
Um, Obviously, over the last 5 years, we've seen Shopify have a real push into enterprise. I think over the last 18 to 24 months, in my opinion, we're really starting to see it make some substantial headway. Why is that?
Uh, well, one is obviously a push from Shopify themselves. So obviously they're trying to go for that enterprise market, but the way that they're doing that is essentially they are maturing their offering. They are building the APIs that enterprise retailers need. They are building flexibility into their platform to allow enterprise retailers to move to Shopify. Um, so again, a couple of years ago, yes, you could modify the checkout. Yes, you could use cart scripts to essentially create a promo engine, but everything was a little bit hacky back then. Today, they essentially introduced extensibility. You can extend the checkout. You can add functionality to shape it to what you need. You're no longer really limited by um, Shopify's limitations, really. There's obviously some guardrails because it is still a platform. Some of it is still a black box, but you're now able to extend parts of Shopify that you were never able to in the past. So you can create a complex promo engine now that isn't hacky anymore, that can compete with other platforms in terms of functionality that's available.
Yeah, because I find it really interesting to think we are. I mean, I know there's a big difference between Shopify and Shopify Plus, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, essentially, we have one platform that can accommodate a startup business go live in a couple of hours, alongside a multiple hundreds of million turnover business with a presence in tens of different countries. And to think there's the fundamentals of one platform that can do that as a one size fits all is crazy. And I think a lot of people still look at Shopify as a platform that is a get live quickly, or for your small to mid-sized brands. And it's only really recently been accepted as a platform that's a genuine contender at enterprise.
Agreed. I mean, it is something that's very difficult to maintain when you think about it. Exactly as you
Mm.
said, a platform that can support SMBs and enterprise at the same time, and has added the ability to do B2B natively as well. So you can do D2C and B2B all on the same platform, all on the same website, without having to have separate, completely separate systems that you're managing. Um, it's definitely
Yeah,
an interesting feat.
definitely add in the B2B piece like you mentioned, and it's even more complex, but even more interesting. The B2B piece is a really interesting note actually, because for a long time I've been told B2B isn't Shopify isn't a player in the B2B space.
Hmm.
However, again, that's changed this year. The last 6, 7 months, I hear about Shopify being mentioned alongside some bigger players in the B2B space a lot. I mean, is that something that you're also seeing? Is that a push from Shopify to target themselves in that area as well? I mean, they're obviously taking over retail and B2C, B2B next.
Yeah, it is definitely one of the next things that they're pushing for. As you said, like they've matured their B2B offering from what was something extremely simple that really was almost an afterthought to
Hmm.
something that a lot of B2B retailers can actually use and grow on Shopify with. Is it up there in terms of one of the best B2B offerings? Probably not. Is it going to get there? I do believe so.
Okay, interesting. Honest and I guess modest assessment right now. Um, with the amount of money that Shopify pump into R&D, then yeah, I mean, I think anything's possible, and if they want to make it happen, then they will, as we've seen demonstrated in retail, right? I guess
Exactly.
just throwing it out there. I mean, how far away do you think the platform is from being up there with the best on the B2B?
I would probably give it another year or so,
Okay.
maybe two more editions, and then, but even then, like, so even today, we can still build on Shopify's B2B. We can extend it to essentially fill those gaps. Um, but in terms of like Shopify supporting those gaps natively, I think that's going to take another year or so.
Okay. Still not that long in the grand scheme of things, though.
Yeah.
No. Okay. All right. So looking back at Shopify and I guess its ability to enable brands to grow alongside reducing sort of the TCO, um, what is the real unlock for their growth? Is it the speed? Is it the integrations, the flexibility, something different, combination of all of them probably, but
Yeah, pretty much a combination of all of them. So it's I guess if I had to summarize Shopify's growth unlock in one word, I would definitely choose speed. speed to launch, to test, to expand, to iterate. Um, you can roll out new features weekly. So essentially, what used to take 3 to 6 months in a traditional stack now takes weeks. So that agility compounds growth. Integrations is definitely a massive one. So the ecosystem itself is massive. You have ERP connectors, you have marketing apps, you have OMS middleware, all of that essentially with one-click configuration. Obviously, some retailers with more complex ERP needs, the connectors out of the box are probably or most likely not going to work. But for a lot of them, it will, and it just simplifies the integration, which again goes back to speed, right? So you're no longer building something from scratch. It's taking you a lot less time to integrate with your software.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So as the more and more enterprise customers look to Shopify as a platform, I guess what would be interesting to know is how many of the conversations you have with businesses or challenge its scalability for them versus how many are coming to you saying we believe Shopify is the platform we want to work with. So you got that kind of those that are kind of skeptical and challenging you
Mhm.
versus those that are already bought into Shopify.
I would say less and less these days. So a
Mm,
year, if you would have asked me this question a year ago, I think most of my conversations, maybe 80 to 90% of my conversations were around convincing retailers that Shopify is scalable. Shopify will do what they need, and they're not going to be limited by it. Um, Today, I would say that's maybe 40% of my conversations are around convincing them that Shopify is
okay.
actually a good solution. And the rest of it is just essentially they already know that Shopify is the way forward, and they just want to make sure that it essentially ticks all of their boxes.
Okay. So what would you say then if a brand approached you that was doubting its scalability? How would you summarize your response to that question?
Uh, I mean, the way that I would summarize it is one, I would use value proof. So I would just show them like, look at these enterprise brands that are on Shopify, that are scaling with no issues, that are doing 250 million plus in business and sales on Shopify. And the platform is not even breaking a sweat for them. It's essentially answering all of their needs. So look at
Mm,
Skims, look at Mattel, Staples, a Canadian brand that's on there. They're all running successfully on Shopify.
nice. Just fresh straight back at them with facts, cold hard facts.
Yeah, cold hard facts. I mean, if they're doing it, their business is running well. They're reducing their TCO and they're just bringing value to their website. Then yeah, if it works for them, why wouldn't it work for you?
It's very true. It's very true. On a side note, something I love about Shopify, and it's the web page they put together every year on Black Friday that shows you the volume of transactions that the platform's managing at any one time. It, crazy. The just seeing those numbers is fascinating. I've been watching it now for about 4 years, and it's just the growth is crazy.
It is
Um,
absolutely insanity. Yeah.
it's something that I really like about Shopify though, and it's how they market themselves. And I mean, all the other e-commerce platforms are probably doing similar in terms of volume
Mhm.
within certain within reason, right? And but none of them talk about it. It's the same as I was speaking to somebody the other day, and they said Adobe won nearly 200 net new customers globally last year.
Mhm.
I couldn't tell you who one of those customers were. They don't talk about it. What I like about Shopify is it promotes and it talks about everything it's doing. All of the agencies and partners in the ecosystem, whenever they sign a new customer, boom, it's all over socials. It just creates that feeling that Shopify is dominating and it's winning. And I mean, it is clearly, but it's talking about it so much more. And I think if some of their challenges um, just came alive and started promoting their wins as well, we'd probably hear them in more conversations too. But I can't remember the last time I heard SAP in a conversation. Can't remember Adobe, Salesforce here and there, but not much. And it's just Shopify. Every conversation, every newsfeed update is Shopify, and they do such a great job about it.
Agreed, agreed. And I don't think any of those platforms, even before Shopify, really advertised any of that really. So I don't think
No.
it's in like their marketing playbook. Shopify, their e-com is their business. Their whole Shopify as a platform is that's their business, and their value is pushing that, right? So they want people to know that these brands, some of them straight to D2C, some of them old school brands, are essentially moving to Shopify and growing the platform. Um, I don't see that changing very much. I don't think, like, even, I don't know if you've ever attended one of their editions event. There's
Unfortunately
just
not.
there's just so much passion there. Everyone is passionate about the platform. Everyone's excited about the upcoming features. Everyone's excited about the brands that are on there and what they're doing on Shopify. And like you said, Shopify, even at those events, will essentially talk about their brands. They'll advertise for them. They'll have stands where they're giving away merch from those brands as well.
The sort of the Shopify ecosystem and the community is very strong. Something I talk about on a weekly basis with people. With yeah, it's really cool to see, and everyone knows everyone, right? And I
Yeah,
think it's obviously a direct reflection of its success. So yeah, they've done a very good job, that's for sure.
yeah,
Um,
agreed.
so the platform has come a long way over the last 5 years.
Mhm.
Um, and a it will look very different now to maybe how it would have looked when you first got in the Shopify space 8 years ago, and even just 2 or 3 years ago. So, in your opinion, what does a high performing Shopify tech stack look like right now?
Uh, I guess it really depends on the merchant, the brand itself, and like their operations. But today, at least in the enterprise space, essentially I see a PIM that's added to the tech stack. And that's really, it's optional, but it really depends on how complex your SKU is, how small or big your catalog is, how many people are actually working on your product. So adding a PIM like Plitix, Akinio, Salsify really makes sense in that case. Um, Search and merchandising is a big one. So yes, Shopify search and discovery has come a long way since its inception. But if you're looking for richer experiences, like AI-driven ranking, visual search, more complex merchandising rules, then you would look at like an Algolia, a Rebuy, anything, another third party essentially. Uh, Personalization, super important. Keep it lightweight. Start with some kind of audience segmentation and dynamic content with Shopify's personalization APIs. But then you can add heavier tools in there, like a dynamic yield,
Mm,
when you have that data maturity to support them. Um, CMS is usually one of the ones that I don't necessarily recommend to add to your tech stack just because it adds a little bit more complexity, more management, more integration, more development time as well. But I do recommend it when you have complex, I would say, like marketing needs, marketing content, landing pages that are always evolving. You have a lot of articles that you want to write about. You have pieces of content that need to go live at different times of the day and the week, and essentially a release flow for your content. Um, Reviews. So reviews, loyalty, UGC, those are extremely important to have on your tech
mm.
stack. So always go with a proven SaaS partner in there. So like a Yotpo and a Kendo, anything like that. And then I would say the last one would be analytics. So Shopify's native reports are solid for day to day, but if you want enterprise level BI, like you obviously need to use a Google Analytics, little data, or just a CDP like a Bloomreach, for example.
Okay, quite a few areas then.
Yeah, well, I would say like always, like the advice that I usually give is like start with the essentials that give
Yep.
you leverage. Um, and every app should either automate, measure, or personalize. And if it doesn't do one of those three, then it becomes bloat. So yes, add when you need it, but start with an MVP and add from there as your business grows.
Okay. Is there like a average number of apps that a standard enterprise brand would have?
I would say in terms of critical apps, 5, 6 apps, I would say.
Okay, so not many then.
No, I wouldn't
Again,
recommend. I mean, there's obviously a lot. Like,
yeah.
I've been on stores where they've had 20 plus apps installed, but that seems most of the time it's just bloat that's being added there.
Yeah, okay. And actually, that's what I've heard in some conversations, and it's mainly been from the kind of the anti-Shopify crew, but talking about the excessive use of apps that aren't necessary and brands that have like 12, 15, 16 different apps and they don't need it.
Yeah.
Um, I wonder though, is that maybe just a case of just a brand's lack of understanding as to kind of what they need, or do you feel as though they're just do you know what, this is going to be a hard question to answer because it's going to be on a case by case basis, but maybe there's also brands that think that's a good idea, let's do that, let's get this, and because it's generally pretty easy just to connect the app together, they go
Yeah.
ahead with it. It's not a huge amount of investment in terms of cost and time. Suddenly they've got 10 apps that they don't even need or use, or they use but only a small amount of it and not properly.
I mean, it's exactly that. We literally, I think just the other week, completed an audit for a client of ours where they had somewhere around 40 apps installed and they weren't using
Oh wow.
most of them, or they
Okay.
just forgotten about them and they were paying for pretty much all of them.
Was
So
going
we
to
just
say
went
that
in
then
there and like,
increases the TCO, right?
yeah, and like for no reason. And usually it's because maybe it's an e-commerce manager that's trying to do something without involving a developer. And because it's so easy to just install an app and get it to work on Shopify, they'll play around with that and then they might forget about it and it stays on your platform.
That's a lot. 40 apps. Out of interest, you did the audit. How many did you get them down to?
I think we got them down to like something like 5 or 6 apps
Oh
exactly.
wow.
Yeah,
Well, okay, mega.
yeah,
That is big. Okay, talking about tech stack, one thing we haven't spoken about yet is like headless. And it's been a buzzword for a while now. Maybe not so much anymore, but there was a good 2 or 3 year period where it was all about headless and brands looking to move headless. Um, what's your thoughts on headless with Shopify? Is it necessary? Is hydrogen fine? Like, tell me what your thoughts are, Serge.
yeah. So I think, like you said, it's been a buzzword for the last couple of years, and I think Shopify had to adapt just to make sure that essentially they're not left behind, which is why I don't know if that's the reason, the main reason, but obviously they wanted to have a headless offering. So hydrogen, oxygen was the answer to that. Um, to me, I think, and this is from multiple discussions with multiple brands, like I feel that headless is often misunderstood.
Mm,
They think of it as a badge of sophistication when it's actually not that. It's really a response to a real architectural need. So to me, you go headless when you need a highly custom front end experience. You have 3D configurators, you have complex logged in dashboards, you have complex customer accounts, you have multiple sites that you need to manage into one single front end. Um, you want to decouple your content flow. So if you're using a headless CMS, for example, yes, you can integrate it with Shopify on a headed version of Shopify, but usually it's better to go headless when you do that. Um, you have global marketing teams or an A/B testing infrastructure that Shopify's teaming layer can't easily support. Like those are the reasons I would go headless. And if you don't have one of those drivers or any of those drivers, then honestly, you're better off uh, in terms of economics and just speed, staying with Shopify's native stack. Um, yeah.
yeah, I mean it's not a quick fix, right? And it's fairly complex. How many businesses do you feel as though want to go headless but don't need to go headless for the reasons that you just mentioned?
I would say pretty much all of them. I've look, my background is development. So as a developer, would I find it more exciting to work on a headless build versus a liquid build? Yes, for sure. It gives me more flexibility. It allows me to do more cool things on it and more control. Um, but most of the times, the brands that I speak to, they want to go headless because they heard of headless as a buzzword and they think
Mm,
it's going to bring them more performance and it's going to be better for them. And that's usually the only reason. So when you start questioning them, you start poking holes into their logic. At the end of the day, they actually don't have a real reason to go headless. I think I've
okay.
had maybe one brand in the last 2 years or so have an actual valid reason to go headless.
Wow, okay. I was going to come on to that in a minute and ask how many brands do you think have valid reasons to go headless? But I mean, if you've had maybe one in the last 2 years, that gives us an indication for how low that number probably is. But you're right. I mean, I'm not technical, right? And a lot of the time when I speak to people, stuff goes over my head. But almost all the time, whenever someone talks about headless, one of the first things they mention is um, performance in speed and loading times. Yet it seems like whenever I speak to someone that's educated in this space, they tell me it's rubbish,
Hmm.
and I find it fascinating.
Well, it's a double-edged sword. So yes, if you build it properly, yes, you will have more control on caching and performance and speed, and you can potentially squeeze out some performance by doing that. But if you don't and you build it poorly, then you will essentially have a way worse experience than you would on a headed or a Shopify theme, basically.
Got yeah, okay. And I guess also, I mean, when we're talking like milliseconds in difference, is it worth the extra tens of thousands of pounds or maybe more it might cost to do so, alongside the amount of time you're going to be spending doing it for what is effectively n- an increase, a minimal increase?
Exactly. Like, is the juice worth the squeeze, basically?
Yeah, okay. One brand in 2 years. I mean, that's a really low number. I mean, I can imagine you talk to hundreds of brands a year, if not,
Hmm.
yeah, 500 plus, right? So,
Yeah. And we've done like headless builds. We've migrated brands to headless, and then we've done the opposite. We've taken brands from headless to liquid. So there's always like that yo-yo essentially that keeps happening.
yeah. How many have you done where they've moved headless and then they've said, actually, show what this isn't what we were expecting, this isn't what it's made out to be. Let's move us back. So I imagine that's probably quite high.
Yeah, I don't have an exact number. It's definitely like um, in the low dozens, I would say. But what happens usually is that they'll come from another agency, or maybe they built it themselves internally, and then they'll come to us to looking to go back to headed, essentially.
Okay.
Mostly again because they figured out that the juice is actually not worth the squeeze for them, and they ended up paying a lot more in terms of maintenance and development time.
So just quickly then, because a lot of our audience are likely to be C-suite, senior management within retail, small to mid-sized retailers, possibly sort of lower enterprise. Shopify is clearly taken over that segmentation. If any of them are sat here thinking, okay, we're looking at moving headless, what would you be saying to them right now?
I'd say don't. Uh, but realistically, I would ask them to really question the reasons why they want to do that if they have an actual valid need. And performance is usually never one of them, especially not today. Shopify has invested quite a lot um, in their liquid offering, so their liquid servers are much more performant than they used to be a couple of years ago.
Cool, yeah. And I'm being naive here, but I guess for a brand that wants to go headless, that's effectively more work. That means that's more work for the agency, or in your case, Lazer. More work is obviously a good thing, and more revenue. So actually, what you're saying is you don't do it, and you're going to save yourself money, and you're obviously putting yourself out of business at the same time. But you're given the recommendation, which is the right recommendation of you don't need to do it, save yourself the
Yeah.
money, and focus on other areas.
Yeah, yes, like you said, like it is more money for us as an agency. It is a longer build time to do it, a bigger invoice. But at the end of the day, like I don't want to do that and then have the retailer not happy with their implementation and put their business at risk. That doesn't benefit me at all.
Mm.
That retailer is not going to want to work with me ever again after that.
No, exactly that, which is yeah, kind of why I wanted to highlight this isn't a recommendation that's going to be of interest to anyone other than the customer, right? So cool. Something else I want to talk to you about today, Serge, was the conversations you have with enterprise brands that have relatively large technology teams in place already. Um, Many could be working on enterprise legacy platforms like SAP Commerce, Oracle Commerce, etc. Um, those brands are now starting to consider Shopify.
Hmm.
We've already touched upon how Shopify is far less complex from an architectural standpoint, and how the teams don't need to be the same size or the same depth in overall. So I guess, how do you manage those conversations with those businesses? Because they're probably quite tricky when you have a business that's suggesting we should go one way, but that's got a direct negative impact on the technology team, who are also very much involved in that conversation.
That's definitely a very delicate conversation to have with them. And it does, I would say that conversation does happen more often than not. I think by the time they start speaking to us, they're already aware that that's going to happen. But what tends to happen more often than not is that the tech team is resisting the replatform to Shopify, whether it's the CTO themselves, the CIO, or different stakeholders, different technical stakeholders. They do resist it. Um, and it's not because they're wrong, it's just because like their mental model has been shaped by the platforms that they're on, where they think that one, control equals capability. So being able to do whatever changes you want on your platform means it is a more capable platform. So perceived lack of control, really. They do have flexibility concerns, um, but what they really, yeah, it's definitely a tough one to navigate. Essentially, like the conversation that I end up having with them is, listen, you moving on Shopify is going to simplify your tech stack. It will obviously bring you a lot of value. It will reduce your TCO. It will help grow your brand. But unfortunately, the that decision is definitely going to impact your team. You can't go from a team of 20, 30 developers to Shopify and still need 20 to 30 developers. So you're going to have to reorg yourselves and you're going to have to reduce the size of your team. You might need at most 2 to 4 developers to be maintaining and building on Shopify. You can move those developers around if you have middlewares that you want to maintain, if you have an ERP that you need to develop for. Those are things that you're still going to need a development team for. But for the front end, for your ecom, um, those cuts are just going to have to happen, and it's the reality of the situation, unfortunately.
Yeah, so at absolute max, you reckon 2 to 4 devs?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but even
okay.
then, like depending on like the complexity of your website, that might be too many.
Yeah, I was going to say that I can't think of many businesses, end customers or brands that have got more than two.
Yeah,
And I know quite a lot. Um, which is
yeah, I
crazy.
know a
Like we
few that they go between 2 and 4 again, but that's again usually because they have to maintain like a middleware or an ERP that they have to build for.
got yeah. Long are the days of the teams of 10 back end devs, a tech lead, and 4 front end devs, and yeah. So I guess, how I'm just trying to think about the conversations that you would have here. I mean, because obviously a lot of enterprise customers where Shopify is targeting right now
Mhm.
would have substantial technology teams that have been there for a long time. So, how do you introduce Shopify like into a business that is like technology first?
Introduce it in this sense of like getting them comfortable with Shopify.
Yeah, like so getting them to a point where they want to go forward with Shopify as to an upgrade of their current offering, as an example.
Yeah, so I would try, there's like different approaches, but like one of which is maybe start with a pilot, like choose a contained use case. Maybe you're launching into a new region, or maybe you have a smaller brand in your portfolio that you want to open up a website for. That way, that's going to allow the team to just see how Shopify handles core requirements and what is essentially like a low stake, safe sandbox.
Mm,
Um, Try to map your architecture early as well, just to understand where Shopify sits in your broader ecosystem. Like, what is it replacing? What does it need to connect to? What remains owned by internal systems? Um, and then give your tech team clear lanes. So maybe there's API governance, maybe there's data modeling that they need to work on, maybe there's integration pipelines, QA automation that needs to be built. So that gives them a little bit more agency rather than just making Shopify feel like it's a marketing-led decision, which more often than not, it's usually a marketing slash CRO-led decision. So yeah, engineers need to see that Shopify isn't really replacing them, but it's elevating what they're working on.
Okay,
Not sure
interesting.
if that, yeah, not sure if that answers the questions.
Yeah, I think it kind of does. I mean, like going back to what I said earlier, I mean, a lot of our target audience and our listeners are retail brands that will be considering Shopify as a platform. So it's interesting to explore these conversations because there could well be people sat here listening, thinking um, of these very questions that they would like to that they would
Yeah,
be interested in the answers to, right? So I probably don't articulate them in the best way. That's just my lack of uh, technical background. But yeah, the right intention is there anyway.
yeah.
Um, is question for you. I'm just gonna.
Mhm.
There's a bit of an out there one now. But I mean, Shopify has grown to I think the second highest market share for commerce platforms now behind WooCommerce.
Mhm.
Um, WooCommerce has got some crazy statistic. I can't remember what it is, but I think it's like 50% market share or something ridiculous. Do you see a world where Shopify becomes number one?
That is a good question. I feel like the difference between WordPress and WooCommerce is that essentially it's so easy to and so cheap to essentially just launch a WooCommerce website, especially if you're picking a theme, you're setting up everything in WordPress, and there's just so many PHP developers out there as well if you need one. Um, that the question, the answer is I don't know. I don't know if Shopify would ever take over WooCommerce. I think they would in the sense that you still need to maintain WordPress, you still need to maintain WooCommerce. It tends to get hacked quite a lot as well. So my background initially when I started back end and like full stack development was on WordPress back in the day, like with PHP. And a lot of it was just fighting off hackers as well. Like if you're
Okay,
not patching WordPress, then you're open to something that's vulnerable and someone can just take over your site. And the next thing you know, you have your website is ranking for like sex pills, basically. Um, so
just what you want.
yeah, exactly. So all that effort that you put into your SEO and like your ad spend is now like is is in the bin. Um, I would like I honestly like from a personal perspective, I would like to see um, that number shift, mostly because again, if you're an SMB and you want to launch on Shopify, it's just a few clicks. It doesn't actually cost that much per month to have a Shopify store, especially if you're just launching. Literally, you can pick a free theme, customize it, set up your product, set up everything, and I think you're paying under $100 a month. So yeah,
I mean, it's cheap, right? I just went through that process myself in the last 6 months, and everyone told me it was really easy. And I must say, and this will show my level of my technical level, I really struggled. I think I'm the only person in the
there's
world that couldn't set up a Shopify storefront, but there we go.
well, there's definitely a lot of things to configure, and that's probably why. Like, if you don't know what you need to configure, it can be a bit daunting, and maybe that's where WooCommerce can be a little bit more simple for now. Um, but yeah, to me, I don't see a reason why Shopify wouldn't overtake WooCommerce. I think it's just going to take a couple of years, though.
A couple, that's bold. I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe 10, but there we go.
I mean, I
Uh,
don't know where WooCommerce is going to be in 10 years, but
yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I guess a big factor I guess that I'm thinking about now is Shopify is obviously targeting upstream, right? It's targeting enterprise.
yeah.
And I wonder if there becomes a point where anything under a certain number, Shopify just say, "Do you know what? Maybe we'll let someone else have them because actually what we want the top." And there is it genuinely possible to have a platform that can do everything for your true enterprise, talking your big supermarket chains that are in multiple countries, as well as your pop-up store, get it live in half a day for $100. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe it is possible. I guess maybe we'll find out in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, to me, obviously, I'm not in Toby's head, so I don't know what he's planning. But to me, they're kind of already doing it, and I don't see them wanting to let go of SMBs, mostly because that's how they started. A lot of the functionality that they're building and releasing caters to them. We haven't really touched on it at all, but anything related to AI, for example, that helps both enterprise and SMBs as well. So, for example, for yourself, when you were setting up your store, you could have easily started using Sidekick just to build out your theme and play
Mm.
around with it without ever needing to hire a developer, really.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that recently. I'm pretty certain I didn't miss it, but I didn't see it when I was building the store
Yeah.
a while back. Whereas when we were looking at GoDaddy and Wix as the comparisons, the AI assistant was
Mhm.
very helpful. Um, so I'm not sure what happened with our AI assistant on Shopify. Yeah, who knows?
I think it's still maybe a little bit hard to find, and they're working on it. But yeah,
Okay, okay. Well, there we go. Um, yeah, who knows? Watch your space. We might be on there soon.
yeah,
But yeah, actually, I'm surprised with right at the end of the pod, and that is the first time AI has come up. It's actually been quite refreshing. I can't remember the last time I spoke to somebody and AI hadn't come up. So we almost made it.
I'm sorry.
Um,
Yeah, a lot of clients are asking it about AI, and really, we're. I mean, Laser has like a very deep AI business as well.
mm,
Um, and I don't think there's any way of escaping it, uh, unfortunately.
no, there's not. I guess that this as it's come into conversation, and in your opinion, where are the real use cases with AI and Shopify right now?
Uh, I don't think the real use cases are there yet in my mind.
Okay.
So I
All right,
don't,
like it.
yeah, I think Sidekick is useful. I think it's gonna help merchants really, but I think the real unlock is being able to use AI to be able to forecast your inventory, to be able to understand your sales and your numbers and um, your performance. And I think that's gonna be the real unlock. Once that's properly integrated, and when you could start asking it questions, or not even asking it questions, it would just predict for you, hey, you need to stock up inventory on this product because we forecast it's gonna start selling like hot bread soon. I think that's gonna be very useful.
And is that something that's close?
I think it is. I've seen some even iPasses do that. So Pipe 17 is one of
Yeah.
them that has, I think they just released a week or two ago, an MCP server that you can essentially quiz it across all of your integration stack.
Okay. All right. Well, that certainly sounds like a something that will be of great interest to a lot of retailers.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, yeah, please we touched upon that. Um, quickly then, I've got a few questions just to wrap this up. Quick fire, so don't spend too long thinking these through. I want quick answers, okay?
All right.
What is the one Shopify app every D2C brand must have?
I would say checkout blocks would
Check
be
out
blocks.
blocks, okay? What is the most underrated, sorry? What is the most underrated native Shopify feature?
I would say Shopify customer segmentation. That's something that's not many people use it as much as they should be using it.
Okay, why do you think that is?
I feel like just they don't know it's there, or
Okay,
they don't know how flexible it can be.
okay. I mean, to me, the customer segmentation is important. Even
Yeah,
like right now, every conversation is around personalization and understanding your customer data. So, yeah, that segmentation, I would imagine, is very important.
yeah.
Sorry, that wasn't a quick answer, was it? It's a conversation.
I tried to limit myself. Yeah,
Yeah, that's my fault. Does the
it's my fault.
composable versus Shopify debate still matter at the end of 2025?
I don't think it does. No.
Okay. And
You
then
want me to
last
start?
one. No, that's fine. And last question is, what's your one piece of advice to a CTO that's on the fence about Shopify?
Uh, don't debate the architecture, just test the outcome.
Nice. So I feel like you said that one before. Smooth.
Yeah. I have
Love
to keep
it.
saying it to CTOs. So yeah.
It's ingrained. There you go. Just rolls off easily. Love
Yeah.
it. Cool. Thanks for joining me, Serge. Really enjoyed this one.
Thank you for having me, James. Also enjoyed it.
And I hope you've all enjoyed listening as well. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.